Welcome to the JAMODI podcast. We are all surrounded by amazing coaches and leaders. So let's get an inside look at not just what they do, but how they do what they do. After all, becoming the best versions of ourselves is JAMODI, just a matter of doing it.
Coaches, the JAMODI podcast is powered by Scoreboard Media. Scoreboard Media works with high schools across the country to run professional sponsorship programs on their LED scoreboards. Whether you already have LED and you just want to supercharge the revenue, or you want to use sponsorship revenue to buy new LED video scoreboards, Scoreboard Media can help. They work with sponsors and advertisers locally, regionally, and nationally who want to connect with your school's community. Email info@scoreboardmedia.com to start the conversation and see what's possible.
Well, it goes back to what you said with practice plans. And I think it's the art versus the science, the feel versus what's on the paper. And I think early on, I know I was dominated by the science part, like what I have timed out here or in a game, what we're going to go to. This is the game plan that we said, and I'm head down pushing through no matter what. I think over time, the art piece or feel, like you said, I've always wondered, do players just have feel, or can feel be taught? Can you learn it? And I'm still not sure about on the floor, but I think for us, and maybe it is on the floor the same way, for us, it's over time we get the feel of, man, I know we just got beat on that same play, but stick with it. Or, you know what, like it's time to make a change. It may be even with what we're doing or our personnel on the floor. But I think art and feel, there's always going to be, art and science, always going to be a struggle between those two.
I think so. And it changes, I think, moment to moment on what is needed, because you have to have an organization and a purpose and we have to know these things to get ready for a game. You have to have a press break in. Like you have to be able to go against the zone, but being able to understand what you need in the moment. But I think a lot of feel, as we teach guys on the court, a lot of quote unquote feel comes from decision making. And so, if somebody has a feel off of a middle ball screen, a lot of times it's because they can make the right decision. And so even as coaches, like our feel a lot of times comes from, we can make the right decision because we prepared. We said, okay, these are some things that can come out of this drill or this play or this defense, and I'm prepared to make a decision off of it. And sometimes that is labeled as feel, and knowledge and preparation can lead to that for your players and for us. Now, there's also a feel of an otherness that you can't put on paper. The feel of a team, you can walk in a huddle and feel they're tense, or you feel their energy is low, or there is an emotional feel that has to go with it also, because that goes into the decision of, do you pull the plug on something, or is it one of those things? Because you know what, there's some times where it's not your night for something in particular, and you got to have the feel for knowing when that is, or when you can motivate this guy to do that, or whether you're not going to get it out of him, and so let's go do something you can get out of him. Now, if somebody understands that, they'll be a trillionaire and they can sell every motivational speaker thing ever. But I think it's my assistants probably joke with me, because that feel and the lack of black and white in almost anything we do as coaches is sometimes hard for them, because I'll devil's advocate my own statement in a meeting, or a player like
Just said this. I know what I just said, but what about this too?
It happens all the time. And I'll get them convinced, like, we should start doing this. And I'm like, but well, what about this? They're like, Coach, you just said this. And I'm like, but
you're
then
keeping them on their toes. That's what you're doing. You're keeping them on their toes. No, it goes back to something you said earlier about spending time with your team. How do you get more feel with your team? Spend time with them. Actually know them. Know that what makes them tick. Know what motivates them. Know what their aspirations are individually and as a team. And then another nugget I think you kind of alluded to was, make sure that your skill work actually leads to the game that they play, because we want them to have more feel within our system, within our flow, but our skill work is completely separate to that. And nothing wrong with ball handling and two ball and all that stuff. I love all the stuff out there that you can do that's different. Man, give me a med ball and a foam roller. I'm down. But there has to be a game. Michael Lancaster said this, it's got to be a game connector to it. Like I'm doing even something like ball wraps. What is a ball wrap for, coach? How does this actually help me? Well, actually, man, it does a lot for you. And we have to have the ability to explain that, or else it's just something that may look good in a video, but actually does not connect it all to them having more feel on the court.
I agree. And it is one of the harder things is setting up our skill work and drills to mimic something that's going to happen in a game. So they are getting confidence in that preparation. In there, you get confidence by work because you say, okay, I know I've worked this. And then when I see it, I'm like, okay, I've seen this many, many times. But then, like you said, there's also things like some of the two ball handling. You say, okay, this is going to help you because of this. And that takes a lot of time and planning on our part to be able to, like we talked about, you have to be able to explain the why to do it. And then what is the outcome? The outcome is not that I want to be the next great trainer of players that gets, recognized for that. I want to, put this guy in a position so that he can be really good. And it's honestly made our skill work be more about decisions than about necessarily a skill, and even finishing decisions on finishing. Like, is he helping up? Is he staying low? Is there his hands up or his hands down? So that their skill work, all aspects of it become a decision. Like, okay, it's cool to have a in between legs, in and out, whatever. Like, when do I use that? And why do I use that? And then in the offense, like, where do I actually get to use this? Because there was one point a couple of years ago, I was working with a guy on jump shots, and because he wanted to get better in a jump shot. Then he asked me, he's like, Coach, where in the offense do I actually get these? And in my head, I was like, you don't. And
great question, Johnny.
Yeah, I was like, man, that's a really good thought. He's like, well, do you think I could be working on some of the things that I'll get in the offense? And I'm like, yes. And that helped me to be like, okay, I need to be a better coach in this. And it played exactly to your skill work needs to connect, and they need to mentally be able to connect it. Even if it doesn't physically look like it, you have to be able to tell them this is going to help you do that. Speed ladder is going to help you become a better defender because of this, as opposed to you're just making them work just to work. And it's a hard connection you got to be real cognizant of.
I do want to ask you a little bit about confidence, building confidence in your players. And it's unique kind of coming from you because you were at Sam Houston for, like you said, 11 or 12 years working for the same coach. And then you moved over to where, so maybe you were having conversations with players in a different way as an assistant. Now all of a sudden you're the head coach. Confidence is one of those things. We want our players to feel confident, play confident. How do you address that with your guys?
I think that they have to know that you believe in them and believe in their strengths and that you want similar outcomes. You have to be able to explain why me wanting this for you is going to help you in the same way that you want to help you, and that we're on the same page. And I think that is the basis for trust. You're not telling them just to jump how high. It's, why I'm telling you to jump high. And I think that players, when they play loose and free and they're not looking over their shoulder, they are comfortable and they're familiar, and that allows them to be their best. The worst thing we can do is have them be tight. And so it certainly was different for me because my role in creating confidence is very different now than it was a year or two ago in the conversations and how I would approach it. And Coach Hooten was great at that as well, but he did it from a head coaching perspective. And so I had to figure out, okay, how do I build that? How do I let them know that I believe in practice, in our meetings, during games? Because you can tell somebody that you're really confident in them, but your subbing patterns or your reactions to a shot or a play can show that your words don't follow up with your real belief in them. And so, one of the things that I tell these guys is like, if you give me effort, energy, and focus, then I'm gonna believe in you, and I'm gonna let you rock, and we're gonna play within us, and we're gonna play together. And then we teach the other things. If somebody took a shot that was maybe questionable, well, let's talk about that from a teaching perspective. But if they did it in the right way, with the right energy, executing the right way, then we're not going to get worked up. And so I think controlling our reactions is probably one of the harder things as a coach, because one of the things I guess I realized was that our reaction, we may be reacting to something totally different. maybe we saw that the screen wasn't set the right way. And so we react physically, vocally, our body language, but the shooter looks over at us and they think that it's about them. And that can affect their belief and their confidence and their belief that we trust in them. And so I think that we have a lot of emotions in games, but being able to control those to show belief is one of the more important things that we can do. We have to be able to act out the things that we tell them about our belief. And a lot of times that comes from us believing in them more than they do. And that our accountability usually comes from a place that we think that they are better and can be better than they are at something.
Yeah.
And so I think those things all go hand in hand. And if they don't work together, then they don't believe that you believe, and then they won't have confidence. And that's not the best recipe to get the most out of people. And so it's kind of a constant things working together.
Man, I think you've hit two really big things there. One is us making sure that our words match our actions, because and we all know this, like that nonverbal communication is 93% of how we communicate. The 7% is the words that we say. So be confident. But when I shoot and I glance over at you, you look upset and miserable, but you say, hey, keep shooting it. Well, you're saying that, but you don't look like you want me to keep shooting. And I think that's huge. And I think players more is caught than taught, right? Like, I think they're catching way more from us. And so like Steve Kerr stands and sits down at random times throughout the game, never force something, because he doesn't want to create a pattern of I sit when I'm mad, I stand when I'm happy, or vice versa. So it's just random. But I think we need to pay more attention to that side of it.
Then it's hard because you get caught up in the emotion of things and the intensity, because we play really hard. And so, we're pretty intense as coaches, but it needs to be controlled. We want them to control themselves, and we have to do the same if we're going to expect the best outcomes out of that.
And then the other thing is, you mentioned how players want us to be confident in them. Like that's something that's talked about all the time. Coaches, how are you helping them feel more confident? I feel like we need to teach our players what are the ways that they can build confidence, like build our confidence in them. Like, it's their responsibility. Somehow it's got, I don't know if parents did this or what, but got twisted to where it's just our responsibility. It doesn't matter what Johnny does or says, how he practices or how much extra time he puts in. We should be building his confidence. Well, really? Or is this a mutual thing? Like, I'm confident in you, Billy, because of what I've seen you do in practice. You have shown me time and time again that you can miss 2 or 3 shots and it's not going to affect your thought process. You're going to probably nail that next one. Your effort's not going to droop. You're going to keep working. You stay extra, and you put in an hour to another hour and a half a day. So that's why I have confidence in you. Like, they build that. But I think we can't just hope that a player gets that. I think we need to tell them, guys, listen, here are ways that my confidence in you as a player can grow. This is what you can do. But also important, fellas, these are ways that you take confidence away from me. And if there is one person that they should really worry about that, I would believe it's the person in charge of their playing time.
Yeah, and I think that you described confidence in such a great way, because it's trust. I have to be able to trust that you're going to go out and do something that is positive for the team and your teammates. And you do that through proving things, through practice, through reactions, through extra work and those things. But like you said, you also have to define it. I think that's one thing that we try really hard. And I'm not saying we're perfect at it, but let's define everything. Even if you think that they have no idea, there's no reason they shouldn't know this thing. Well, we can't hold them accountable if we haven't told them. And so
I think we assume too much. To your point, I think we assume too much as coaches. I assume that all these guys want to win and that they want to be great. Man, be careful with that.
Yeah. There's competing things, or assume that, guys know what a closeout is, or guys know what communication looks like, or whatever it is. And so I think you got to define it. And then each person's trust is going to be built on some foundational things, but also, okay, so I have confidence in you to do these things. And not that you pigeonhole guys, but I think defining guys' roles of, hey, you're really good at these things. You are at your best when you're focusing on these things. Doesn't mean it's the only things you do, but let's dial in on what makes you great. And then we'll build from there. Let's keep getting better so that other things become great things about you also. And that's where it can be individual. And that part's hard, because there was a coach who I heard said, I'm going to treat you all fair, but I'm going to treat each one of you different. And I really liked that, because the standards and the fairness has to be there. If you treat one player totally different than another and allow your standards to be not met by somebody and other person gets consequences for it, that's where it becomes a problem. But I also think that motivating and their trust and all those things is different. Our, 6'11" guy is going to handle communication different than this other guy we have on the team. And so building confidence and trust is going to be different for those guys. And accountability is going to be different for those guys. And that's a hard balance to be a two-way street to build that confidence, is because it is going to be different with certain guys. Because I also think that a lot of these really masculine, ego, tough guys that we're coaching are not confident, not actually confident in their skills, not confident in having success. And so a lot of it is a defense mechanism. And so getting to you're building real confidence from something that is real, that they can have continued success in, even when they're having failures in others, is probably the hardest thing, because everybody wants to be big and tough and confident in these things. And then, man, on the inside, you are not confident in these things. And how do we help you with that? And that part is hard and better than fixing a jump shot. And so it's one of the harder things that, again, if somebody had figured out, they'd be a trillionaire or have won 2 national championships in a row. So maybe Dan Hurley has this thing figured out.
Thank you for checking out today's episode. Please take a moment to subscribe to this podcast, share it with your fellow coaches, and find us on social media for what's coming up next on the JAMODI podcast. It's just a matter of doing it.